Hi, my name is Jeremy, and I did this article on John Winthrop's "City of Women" by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. So really, there was three main areas of focus for me. First was kind of the female and male relationships or responsibilities, and the second was all opportunities to assert their spiritual visions and carnal desires. And the third was the religious dissent or the dissenters that appeared in this article. So, just kind of a quick rundown. The gender itself was a central and unavoidable issue in the 17th century Massachusetts. There were no single Puritan attitudes towards women, but males had a responsibility for the welfare of their families, the power to lead, the power to admonish, and command their wives, even. But only God had the power to save them, a providential kind of belief that they had. So in some of the stories throughout the article, there was cases where the males didn't step in, and other third parties or other means stopped the potential deaths of their wives. So they viewed it as a providential kind of saving from God rather than the male figure's responsibility to save. Puritans encouraged female assertiveness, not by questioning social norms, but by nurturing lay engagements through their religious practice. Boston in 1636, that time frame of John Winthrop, there was a struggle over the meaning of salvation, which really thrusted women into the political actors when it came to the religious debate. Winthrop included stories in his journal about women, and he recognized their importance to the establishment of a colony itself. In his view, these women were high status women, older women, and godly women, and ultimately everybody else was kind of left to his judgment. And often in the cases of the stories, he was listed as everyone was listed as a dissenter of some form because of their practice or the actions that they occurred in the stories that he presented. It was commented in the article that Winthrop may have disliked or feared women, but he couldn't ignore them because of their contribution to society. Anne Hutchinson, as one of the figures that was predominant in the initial part of the article itself, but she arrived in Boston in 1634, about 4 years after Winthrop. Hutchinson grew her following to include the then current governor of Sir Henry Vane. Her growth ultimately challenged the church, and that was kind of really where her troubles started. The conflict was that women could not be public teachers. They couldn't express or project in public. But the problem was that the authority that the state had was that they couldn't interfere in informal gatherings that actually were occurring in her home. So they knew she was preaching, but they couldn't touch her because she was doing it in her home. So there was really this issue and challenge that started everything, but ultimately ended in her kind of losing that battle. Several detailed accounts in Winthrop's journal that address female and male interactions. Like I said, many of them were negative. Most of them were about abuse, sexual violence, and other acts that occurred. And in most of these cases, the males were severely punished. So sexual violence and sexual crimes were, not acceptable practice in any sense, no matter what happened. So a lot of times the males were whipped or even killed because of their crimes. But the odd part was that in some cases, women were also punished. Less severely, but, still punished in some aspects. Throughout John Winthrop's life, there were very few witch trials that actually occurred that he even captured in his journal, but historically that even occurred during the period of his existence. But I do believe personally that this was kind of the stepping stone or the stage that started it, as the witch trials really occurred, several years after John Winthrop. But there's a lot of accounts for, women being pursued almost as witches. John Winthrop's journals are vivid, detailed, and filled with drama. Laurel Ulrich states that the history of early Massachusetts was not about powerful men and assertive women, but more so about accidental events and a person, i.e. John Winthrop, who gave them meaning. So the real question becomes, were Winthrop's stories accurate depictions of women in early Massachusetts, or were they embellished stories to kind of fit whatever his agenda might have been? Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.